Welcome, welcome, welcome to day 2, the day that really matters of Commanders in Conflict. I'm Knorr. With me, of course, I have Midgeman. Hello.
Hello, everybody, and hello, Knorr.
What are we doing?
Well,
why are we here? What are the big questions of life?
Well, today we are here to establish who our first Commander in Conflict commander is. We've got a knockout tournament. We had a round robin yesterday for seeding purposes, and now, like you said, it's the day that really matters, and we're going to be knocking people out. And they're going to be playing on our first map that we've ever developed, Sonderbloom. And yeah, we're going to see a load of Axis versus Allies in a 1v1 scenario. But we've got a little bit of a video to explain that, don't we?
I mean, I'm sure we do. We're going to look at that in just a bit. And that bit is probably right now.
Competitors are battling it out in a 1v1 custom-made scenario that pits Axis versus Allies as they vie for control over 3 key victory points across North Africa. There are 2 win conditions for the game. Competitors must either capitulate their opponent or hold a majority of the key victory points of Malta, Tripoli, and Benghazi. After 365 days in-game, Total War commences, and it's kill or be killed. Each match will run at speed 3 and last 60 minutes. Commanders, to your stations. The conflict awaits.
Everything makes sense now. No, that was just a short explainer in case you missed yesterday. Hopefully, if you're accustomed to Hoi, it should be pretty understandable. And if you're not, I think it should still be pretty understandable because we have some of my favorite casters casting this tournament. We'll talk. We'll announce them a bit later. Well, you're gonna cast some of it. Count Christo's gonna cast some of it. Tommy K is gonna cast a lot of it.
Yes, yes, we do have some really wonderful casters here, if I say so myself.
And not just, wonderful casters, but we also have some lovely players.
Yes.
So let's have a look at the bracket. So this is what we're going to do today. We have 2 quarterfinals. The first one that we're going to jump into shortly, Seemops versus Habibi. The second one, Discard Pixel versus Courier. And of course, the winners of those 2 quarterfinals get to go to the semifinals and play against Dankis and Leonard, and whoever wins those, well, everyone knows how a tournament bracket works. There's going to be a grand final, and there's going to be a commander at the end of today. In total, 5 games of our 1v1 map. We're coming into this after about, now I have to do math again, that was a mistake, 15 games yesterday. We had 15 games in total. Do you feel like, has there been any strategies at this point?
Well, if we look at the statistics of how the games went yesterday, we had a 57.1% win rate for the Axis and a 42.9% win rate for the Allies. So there is quite a balance there, but the real interesting point is when you get into faction choices, because there's a bit more of a split there. There's 3 faction choices for each nation, and with the allied choices, it's a bit more even split between 2 of them. We're seeing 40% choice of US and 53.3% choice of the Commonwealth faction, with only 2 games being played with the Soviets, so they're down at 6.7%. But we're really seeing a big focus with the Axis choices leaning towards the Japanese pick, which is a 64.3% pick rate.
Yeah.
Now,
I'm going to interrupt you because we are stuck on the leaderboard here. No, we're not stuck in it, but we forgot to mention it. And I feel like we should just have a quick look at what actually happened yesterday. And this explains why Dankis and Leonard, of course, are already in the semifinals.
Yes.
Leonard with a clean sweep. Dankis only losing to Leonard. And, of course, these are the seeds from yesterday. And it kind of tells the story. I mean, I am one to mention, and I keep wanting to mention it, because otherwise Absolute Habibi would be very sad with me. Absolute Habibi and I think it was Seemops actually have a tie, but we don't count ties around here. No. They're losses.
There is no drawing in warfare.
Exactly. Let's have a look at the quarterfinal matchups of today. in case you need to run out and do something, which you shouldn't. And if you are, just leave the stream running. We don't mind.
Yeah.
Our first matchup, as has been mentioned, is Seemops versus Absolute Habibi. I think we have Seemops on Axis, Absolute Habibi on Allies, because we did to concentrate now, coin toss.
Yes, a coin toss was held earlier before the stream on our Instagram.
Yes. To decide who gets to play what side. That game is at 14:15, so really, really soon. Once that game has completed, we'll take a quick break and go to Discard versus Courier. Let's have a look at our player cards for Seemops and Absolute Habibi. Yes, so Seemops, Germany. Drink moderately, but regularly. I think that's also means you go and take bio breaks moderately often, but also very regularly. And Absolute Habibi once again woke up at 3 a.m. for this. I think we said yesterday that this might be the second matchup for the quarterfinals of the day, because we were like, let's have Absolute Habibi get a bit of a, have him go up a bit later in the morning, but he was like, "No, I'm fine."
No, yeah, he woke up and he was like, "I was already asleep when you sent that message. I'm totally fine to play right now."
Yeah.
So props to them for waking up so early and taking part in this, which is a really interesting point, because performance and stamina is going to come in a lot with these games. It might actually be a big detriment for him waking up this early, but it also might be, he might be fresh. He might be a morning person. You never know.
I think one of the things, if you're looking for an underdog story, right? Yesterday, every player played 5 games in total. There were no really long breaks. It was like, here's a game, got 20 minutes, here's the next game. It means that everyone was kind of on the same level of, keyboard dexterity.
Yes.
If you want to phrase it like that. Today, because it's a single elimination tournament bracket, if you win your first game in the quarterfinals, you've already you're 1 game up going into the semifinals. I mean, having seen what Leonard and Dankus did in game 1, it's still going to be a tough nut to crack, I think. Yeah. But you could make an argument that, our quarterfinalists are at least already warmed up. And,
yes, that's totally fair. They will have the advantage of having played a game, being already in the zone for it, whereas Dankus and Leonard are going to have to go in dry.
Yeah, but they're going to be so relaxed. I'm sure they've slept 12 hours.
I wonder if they're playing CS:GO right now, just because.
If I know what I learned yesterday, I think they've just been looking for different ways to play around with the mod since last night.
Yes, I think a lot of players have been trying their hand at various new tactics, trying to break the established meta of yesterday. Because what we saw is, whilst we saw, as I mentioned earlier, Japan had a high play rate, Japan didn't have a very high win rate.
Yeah.
So I think people have started taken aback, and they've gone, okay, I need to come out of my comfort zone a little bit here and really shake things up if I want to do well. And I think we've got some exciting games ahead of us because of that.
I think we should also mention real quickly that, of course, today we're not even going to tolerate an attempt at a tie.
No, not at all.
Which means that if there, for whatever reason, is a tie situation after 60 minutes, we've given the game a 10-minute sudden death, meaning as soon as one of the players at that point gets to 2 victory points, they win instantly.
Yes.
And after that, we'll figure it out. We're not expecting there to be any ties, honestly, at that point.
No.
But, we've talked it over with the team and our other casters before the game, and I'm sure they have some solutions if we were to end up in such a scenario. What are you most looking forward about today?
I'm looking forward to, like we were just saying, seeing what people come out with today, if it's a change to yesterday's meta or if people are going to be rooted in their ways. Because the thing I think as well, Dankus and Leonard, they've won some games with some pretty solid tactics once they changed around from that first game. Dankus had that rough first game where he tried something new. And then he went to his tried and true, sort of established what he felt comfortable in. People have now seen that for 4 games in a row, which means people have been able to theory craft on that. People have been able to see that and go, okay, how do I beat that? And hopefully we'll see people try to establish themselves today and try to shake up that leaderboard.
speaking of wanting to see things, do you want to see a fantastic double segue?
I would love to see a fantastic double segue.
Because the thing I'm looking forward to the most is you guys watching at home, liking, following, and subscribing on all of our social media platforms. If you like Commanders in Conflict and want to see more of it, please let us know by following us on Twitch, checking out the mod on Steam. There should be a link in Twitch chat for that, and give us a rating if you really like it. I think you do have to go back one version of Hearts of Iron currently, but we're working to update the mod to make sure that that's not going to be an issue. And the thing that's never ever going to be an issue is the casting prowess of my two absolute favorite casters that we have. And we're going to go to them.
That's the first time you've said that I'm not your favorite caster in front of me, and I'm offended.
You should be. Someone who shouldn't be offended are our casters, Christo and Tommy.
Beautiful people of the internet, it is the final day of Commanders in Conflict. We're going hard today. I hope you guys are ready for this. We have some beautiful games today. The meta is getting more and more established, and I'm just feeling the heat. Do you feel the heat?
I do. I absolutely do. And I know who else is feeling the heat, and that is Absolute Habibi versus Seemops right now. They have each, remember, drew with each other. This is the rematch. Last time, they fought themselves to a stalemate. A little bit of explanation on how that can happen. Of course, it won't be happening today. There will be no draws today. But how that can happen is one of the victory points, of course, is Malta. It's at sea. And what that means is you need to be able to get control of the sea to a sufficient extent that you can launch on naval invasion. And that doesn't work if you're in this kind of both players taking it kind of easy, no one being bold enough to kind of send the full navy out there. So there's going to be none of that today because you've got to be going for those wins. And I'm really interested to see, obviously Habibi, he's a great player, but he's not had the tournament of his life so far. If he could start to, he's coming in here at almost, not quite, but almost the lowest seed. If he could redeem himself, come back from that, it'll be really, really exciting to see for sure. I think Seemops also in the Axis, notably, going to be really interesting there. I mean, so far it seems like the US allies has become the thing to beat. Do you think Seemops is up to the task?
I love an underdog story. Habibi is unfortunately our underdog here. He's representing his own home nation, the USA. He's playing the USA build, we'll see in a second, against an Axis Japanese build. Seemops is the one that has to show if he's ready for this. Habibi has nothing to lose. He went 0-5 yesterday. That happens, but today he has everything to show and everything to prove. We will see what the players are doing. Let's go inside the game. Let's make you not wait any longer.
In we go.
And go ham.
I mean, I think it's really interesting, again, how this has evolved. Because as you can see, Habibi in the Allied Nations, we've got this shifting meta that we've been talking about so much, where you've started out with everyone thinking, oh yeah, the Axis OP, it's going to be the Axis all the way. But now what we've seen is actually it might be the Arsenal of democracy that is the thing to beat. We're going to give our players the go-ahead, and let's get this party started. There we are. That's the kind of speed and initiative I like to see on the final day of our tournament.
These guys are hot. They are ready. Instant reactions.
No surprises here. We do have the Japanese Expeditionary Force being picked by Seemops. He's got the plan onto Malta. He's got his battle plan already in place. No surprises there. Whether we see some kind of naval invasions, and something I was talking about late yesterday, I really feel like a concentrated naval invasion around Benghazi is an interesting strategy. It's something that you can hold. It's something that if you're here, and here, you're only being attacked on any one of these tiles from two directions. You've got some mountains that you can help hold. You've got hills you can hold. It would really cut the supply lines. I think we could definitely see Seemops. He's a good player. He's a very good player. It's the kind of thing he could definitely try to pull off. Obviously, Habibi hoping for potentially the longer game. That's where the US tends to thrive because, of course, remember, one of the big things about the US is some of their fantastic industrial bonuses. They really like to play the slightly longer game. Now, Japan, less so. Japan, of course, comes in with a hefty navy, but also they get their amphibious bonuses and their division recovery rate. So less, as soon as you have this bonus, it's giving you all the bonuses it's ever going to give you. You see what I mean? Yeah. So it's less about the long term. The industry is less influential. But I mean, we will see. It's definitely anybody's game. Habibi, obviously, yeah, he's down, but there's no way that he's out. Not yet, anyway. But of course, someone will be in 57 minutes.
And that is the beautiful thing about this tournament, that even if you went 0-5 yesterday, you still have a chance today to make over for that, and we're going to see if the US build of Habibi has a chance here. I think what's very interesting is that Malta is such an interesting point in this map. Sure, the Axis have it a bit easier taking it, especially with the Paradrop, and then they have the bonus victory point and can just defend themselves. So very often, the allied player is the one that has to bring the offensive here, and the US and their strong industry can be exactly that asset you need. We saw it in the final game yesterday with Leonard. He's just building up 50 minutes. He's taking his time, letting you stir, and the mistakes of the enemy pile up, and then he pushes in. The question is, with what is Habibi going to push him? Did he maybe learn from Leonard? Did he see the 40 whiffs?
Yes, quite possibly. Yeah. That's a good point. A very good point.
Did he see the strong suit of Leonard's air yesterday? And is he going to learn from that? Also going to find his own way here? At the moment, one train and infantry equipment.
A little bit of a scout sub. No surprises there. Good idea as usual. A fairly standard industrial setup from both our players here. Although, interesting, already getting the Toad Anti-Air. Anti-Air 1 is an interesting pick. Not quite sure I like that, honestly, versus this. Of course, he's going to get a bit of production efficiency. He'll lose a lot of it. Truck production. Okay, not something we've often seen. That's interesting. Looking like Seemops is intending to attempt to motorize at least a little bit of his supply situation. Interesting.
Especially on a map that's so much about logistics, it seems just so important to fully motorize your divisions here. I like to see this military factor under motorized. But we also see the anti-air from him, and we also saw this called Pixel do an anti-air build yesterday against an enemy air build, which in the end, unfortunately, didn't work well enough.
Not really at all.
A big question that this game needs to answer is anti-air enough to stop the CAS onslaught, and especially the Logi strike onslaught, which is so devastating in this narrow front line that we have here.
Yep, very much so. We can see that Habibi is preparing potentially a little bit. Preparing for the logistical strike onslaught. Armored train is being invented by Habibi. Makes sense. Makes sense. Habibi, of course, going for what has now become the classic US meta, which is to crank out a bunch of submarines as their main strategy in the sea. And you hear a lot, of course, when you're talking about World War II. You hear a lot about the Battle of the Atlantic, submarine warfare in the Atlantic. And it's worth remembering that the battle for the Pacific, the sub-war that the US waged in the Pacific, was actually dramatically larger in scope, scale, and length than the Atlantic sub-war. So it makes a lot of sense to see this becoming, there's a little bit of a historical narrative to that becoming the kind of US build.
We all know Hoi 4 players love historical facts.
They do. They do.
Like and subscribe.
Don't you, chat? All right. So apart from that, tech-wise, we're seeing an interesting lack of air research from Habibi. Meanwhile, Seemops has taken, standard stuff, but also both improved artillery and heavy MG. You have to assume he's taking this improved artillery because he's going to gun for that rocket artillery. And because there's no other reason to grab it so early, in my opinion anyway, not that I can see. So interesting thing about that rocket artillery is that what we've been thinking, and what we were chatting about this last night after the games, it really feels like the Allies have the longer-term advantage. If they can get time to build up, it seems very, very difficult to defend Tripoli from them. But if they are attacked earlier, they have substantially less good situations because they've got a smaller navy to support. They've got some slightly fewer units being spawned from their order of battles from their respective choices, but it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. I mean, if we see a Seemops rush victory, that would certainly be exciting. Have we got any division stuff? No, just cranking out regular divisions for now. Meanwhile, on Habibi, nothing coming out from Habibi. It's interesting. I guess he's waiting until he can get stuff in. And there is the plane build that has done so well for the Allies so far. We're going to be seeing, I imagine, no great surprises here. Oh, double anti-tank cannon, actually. Even heavier on that.
I don't know if I like this.
You'd think at least one cannon or MG to try and keep the plane a little bit safer. But I mean, that's a 35 agility plane right there. That's vulnerable for sure.
And we just talked about this. It looks like to be an anti-air battle against an air battle. Yesterday, this did not go so well for Discord Pixel. It's going to be interesting to see how that comes over today. If we check the intelligence agency on our Axis players here, he's doing something there. Recruiting his operative, spending civilian factories for passive defense. The question is, does he have to defend anything?
I mean, right now, no, but of course that could change at a moment's notice. But for now, that's looking like a little bit of a slip here. Honestly, I know Habibi is obviously not the player that has been winning out so far, but I feel like so far this is a Habibi-favored game. We're seeing... That's interesting. This is one of the first times... Oh, no, he has gone. Sorry, excuse me. I missaw that bit.
Focus-wise, it seems these guys are
very
really
standard
on a path now.
But absolutely, as you were saying, this anti-air build with no planes in production, with no plane research being done, going towards rocket artillery, so far this matchup has been heavily favored towards the allied player, going with planes, going with the no navy, going with the subs. That's what's won so far. So if we can see Seemops take this here, then we're definitely going to see, it's an upset. It's definitely going to be an upset, and it will change how players look at the future rounds.
Especially with the air and the anti-air battle. It reminds me just so much of some games we saw yesterday. What is going to be stronger in the end? And what I love about Cass is, Cass can be shot down, sure, but before it's got shot down, it did damage. And especially, we're talking about logistical damage here that it's going to do in this narrow area here. Leonard has done that beautifully yesterday. If your supply chains in the League of Neutrality's territory are getting destroyed by Cass, you're looking at very big problems. And it doesn't matter how beautiful your divisions are. If they are not supplied, then they cannot do much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's take a look at some of our players here. What is Seemops up to at the moment?
A camera. We love seeing that.
Just cranking through on some of the basic text there. It's going to be very interesting to see how well that rocket artillery does, because, he's going to be able to get it out faster than some of the US industry. But, of course, it's still going to take time. Even as a support division, it's going to take a little while for him to build them out. First agent there being deployed, no big surprises. I am curious to see him going for the passive defense. It's, to me, it strikes me as a kind of a bit of a conservative play. Okay, but that's a change in strategy. We did just see survivability studies being researched by Seemops, so he is going to be engaging in the air war. And yes, if we take a quick look at his production line here, we can see he is indeed intending to commit heavily to the air war. Okay, my live probability predictions on this game just swung dramatically in favor of Seemops. Not more than 50 in favor of Seemops, but previously, if it was going to be Habibi uncontested in the air, I did not see a way that Seemops was going to be able to take that home. But right now, with those air going in, it is a different story. I mean, we're still not seeing anything in the way of spy networks from Habibi. Let's see what Habibi is focusing on just now. Okay, he's getting some troops out, obviously getting his generals in place. Good stuff. And I'm going to be curious to see whether he decides to leave people behind on garrisoning the homeland. How much is he going to leave behind to try and hold some of those provinces? The aggressive front line going up, no big surprises there. Previously, we've seen some allied players leave a couple of divisions around Alexandria and El Alamein just to make sure that area stays secure. It's been quite successful so far. It really hasn't taken much, but what we haven't seen yet is a determined assault in here. We've seen some 10 widths, we've seen some 2 widths, but we've seen a bit more of the smaller scale attacks. If we see a hefty attack landing next to Alexandria, landing both sides, stealing the airbase immediately, so there's no ability for them to be able to shoot you down or cast you at that point. Then you've got the encirclement on Alexandria. Alexandria falls. If you have the naval supremacy, which it looks like Seemops is going to have, of course, with the Japanese Navy, then it puts you in a strong position. It certainly does.
What I think is very interesting in this game right now is we saw both players are finally going air. And a big issue yesterday we saw is what plane is fighting what kind of plane. What designs are the players offering here? And we see here Seemops' Japanese plane, and he's putting a cannon in it. Very interesting. The drop tanks. I would like to see players more often use the oh, it's not in here, the one rubber seat for more air defense. But he is doing the cannon here. Is this going to be enough? And it's going to be very interesting to see what our allied player is coming up with. For
yes, we hop over here. It's the one that you would recommend.
Yeah, exactly. And that is so interesting, seeing both of them fight. If we look at certain people in the community that have tested this, it looks like if a 100 fighters of this type fight 100 fighters of Seemops' type, that the allied type of Habibi is supposedly a bit ahead, a bit more the advantage. Going to be interesting to see that.
Very interesting. And then comparing the CAS, we're seeing, yes, some heavy secondary weapons, the 4 MGs have gone in on this side, whereas if we look over to the other perspective...
And here we do not have MG and not a defense MG. We have one bomb block and no MG like on the other side, and we have the drop tanks for more range, and range is very, very important in the air war here.
Interesting.
And both players just really looking at air. Now, there's the railway gun coming out for our allied player. They love this.
The US... As we've been saying, the meta is evolving, but the US meta seems really down at this point. You get your subs, you get your railway gun, you get your planes, you get your CAS, you have your main attack, you get your 40 widths. I don't believe he has gone 40 width yet. No, he has. He's built his 40 widths. Here they are, and they are looking pretty good. But it's very, very precise. But there's a risk. There's a risk to having such a precise meta, because if you build such that your enemy can predict what you're going to be doing, they know how to play against it. So, but look at the defense values. Look at that soft attack.
This seems like a homage to Leonard yesterday, who used the same symbol, the good old 14-4 spec. People called me a madman ages ago. I have to change the width of my divisions. No, the 40 width is still the big star in Hearts-Friend 4. We see it in this tournament here. And it feels like the narrative of this tournament is becoming, can the Axis players survive the onslaught of the 40 whiffs coming out of Alexandria?
Seems like it. The thing about the 40 wits, though, I know I've talked about this before, but I really, really feel like it can be done. I really feel like you play it fairly normally. You have your defensive line near Tripoli. And again, really interesting to see the variations on the defensive line that we've seen here, because we've seen this line round here. We've seen this line over there. We've seen this line straight across here. It's been a big variety of different things, which has been really, really interesting. But what I would like to see from Seemops here, this is just my idea, you know, I'm not as good as these players, frankly, but this is what I'd like to see. You have your standard defensive line here. You build to try and hold that. You contest the air. That's something we've seen the Axis not doing. You've got to contest the air. And then the 40 wits arrive. Now, 40 wits, super powerful, super strong, really high soft attack, really high organization, absolute wrecking machines. But what are they? They are precious. They're not very numerous, meaning that if you can get the encirclement and take out one or two of them, they're in real trouble. How do you get that encirclement? You take Benghazi. You do the naval invasion, or you take Tobruk. You cut in here, and you're not looking to capitulate. You're not looking for any of that. You're looking to cut the railway lines. We've seen that the Axis players have, interesting, not Seemops. Most of the Axis players have adopted the far from the coast train line, perhaps a confidence indicator from Seemops that he's willing to go close to the coast. What we haven't seen from the allied player is the inland train line. And I think that would honestly be smart. It's a little bit longer, but if your train line is going through Benghazi and then south, then one tile naval invasion cuts your supply. And then, you know, if you're the allies right now, we can take a look here. You know, your ticking clock starts. You've only got 108 hours before you are going to be into supply hell. And at speed 3, those hours tick away really, really fast.
That is true. Let's take a little look here at first decisions from our Axis player. He went state, serves the military, wants to get some PP here. We also see our first Navy command, screen attack +5, torpedo screen penetration +5. He is ready to have a naval war against Habibi here, and done with his military focuses. Normally we see them go into the civilian factories now, but he's going for the free Japanese aircraft carriers, and we see that our Axis player wants to rule the Navy. He wants to make sure Malta is his, and that this allied player has to come for Tripoli no matter what.
That's what it seems like. Certainly, I'm curious that he's doing it so soon, that he's going for those carriers. He, of course, has a little while yet. Gosh, look at those plane assignments from Habibi. A massive investment being made there. The Grand, the railway gun coming out, no great surprises there. The new railway expansion, again, no big surprise. That is what we so very often see in this game. We are now only 85 days from war. He's going harder on support equipment, probably trying to supply those, he's got the extra artillery, he's got the recon, he's got the engineers. His 40 wits are going to be requiring 40 support equipment each, not an insubstantial number by any means. Oh, but you can see the stress. We know what it's all about now. Yesterday, of course, the games were intense, the games were impactful, but they weren't deadly. Today, only one loss, and you are out.
And that is a very scary thing to think about. Habibi still here, though, still sitting in his chair, fighting it. His build looks very air-heavy. He wants to make sure I need to win this air zone or I am in trouble. I'm going to support my divisions with the railway gun. This seems a lot like he learned from the school of Leonard, really seeing what Leonard did yesterday. And it worked 5 times in a row.
Yeah.
And let's see if it works today.
I mean, I think it's going to be... This is going to be a really close match. This is a game that we have... The meta is feeling established. The players are playing into that. We're not seeing a big divergence with the exception of Seemops going for that heavier air focus. We have the significantly higher than normal fighter investment. You can actually see he's suffering a aluminium shortage. He's so all in on that air. Of course, that's a problem for him that is going to go away in just 62 days, because once he takes Valletta and has control of that juicy aluminium over on Malta, he's going to be finding himself in a better situation. Making the decision here on the plane advisor to go for, I have to imagine, yes, indeed, ground support is where he decides to go for that. Oh, anxiously checking the number of days till war. I know we can all relate to feeling the pressure of that countdown. Absolutely. He's not currently, I mean, he's considering importing, it looked like for a second there, but perhaps not. Now, let's take a look here. I think in terms of relative air strength, what are we looking at? Right now, we have the 6060, which has spawned in with his Navy. And I would not be at all surprised to see these planes being deployed on land. We saw that a little bit in some of the games yesterday. I would not be at all surprised to see that coming out again. Right now, we seem to have no planes for Habibi. Am I crazy? He's got a lot of fighter production. No, okay. He has about 42 in, but he has yet to do the focuses to get the production. Here it is. You get the 100 planes there relative to if we hop back over to the Axis. He has also not quite done those. He's looking for... Here it is, Ace of the Sand. So they're both only one focus away. Shouldn't have trouble getting those in place before the war starts, as long as they focus it. We're seeing a 1-division assault just with a... Is this a 2-width? Wouldn't be surprised. No, okay.
It's not the good old camel from yesterday.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, not a 2-width, but not a big division. Again, our players have yet to suffer a naval invasion of Malta. The only naval invasion we have ever seen land on this island that was actually contested was, of course, Dankas's in our very first game, landing, having been intercepted so many times by the excellent sub-play of Leonard over in the Allies, really starting us off. And it does feel like we have players leaning in to the school of Leonard when it comes to how they're managing this sub-areas. Now, we are seeing, I think, actually now even higher investment on planes from Seemops than from Habibi. We've got an extra 4 factories over on Seemops' side dedicated to planes. Of course, he's going to be suffering from the fact that once Habibi has all of his focuses done, he's going to be enjoying a larger industrial base, which he'll be using to bang out all of those planes. We're also seeing you're stuck with Toad 1. Chat is telling me that they think that's an excellent idea. It's all you really need. Maybe. Certainly allows you to crank your production efficiency nice and high while they're working on that. But we will see how things go. The war now kicking off in merely 12 days. Last check on Habibi. Yeah, no naval invasions, no intent to contest His men are now finally moving to the front. Yes, some assigns to defensive positions here. Not necessarily certain you need 5 defending down here, but I'm sure he's just getting stuff organized for now. Now the question becomes, with 6 days left on here, are we going to see the Seemops rush? Tommy, if you had to make a guess, what would you say?
I think we have to see Seemops rush. The school of Leonard we just talked about is waiting for 50 minutes and then the last 10 minutes going ham. And the Axis players have to find a solution for that. You can't just stand there defending Malta, defending your main line in Tripoli. It might not be enough to take on the industrial power of the USA in the east. And I would love to see a solution from Seemops against this tactic from Habibi.
It would certainly be very interesting to see. We do have the spawned-in Marine Division, interestingly, not being disbanded as of yet. We'll see whether, and there's the second one, we'll see whether that is intended to be used. There is Malta falling, no big surprise there. Interesting, he's got these motorized, and that's what he was using it for. He's got some 6 two-width motorized divisions. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Is that potentially for a naval invasion or just for rushing across faster, providing a little bit of gumming up the gears? It looks like he's moving to a fairly classic defensive line. We're seeing something here. I mean, that is one of the very typical defensive lines that people have attempted to adopt around Tripoli. Again, of course, defensive lines are all about trying to withstand, trying to minimize the number of angles of attack your enemy can give you. This gives you no more than 2 on all of these provinces. But I don't know. I don't. What I will say is the rush is hard because, of course, it puts your supply situation in just a devastating, difficult situation. This could well be a force designed to help mitigate that, because one way to mitigate that, okay, units are still moving forwards despite the serious crippling supply issues that they are no doubt facing. He's moving the units. He's not shuffling them back and forth. There's no wastage here. Remember that the units take attrition when moving in areas of poor supply. Merely standing there, unless the supply gets really, really bad, is not too much of a problem at all. We do have a Benghazi garrison being deployed here, trying to resist exactly what I was talking about. And interestingly, a Tobruk garrison, not a huge surprise. Some people staying back here near Alexandria, near Port Said, makes sense. A bit of a conservative play so far from both players. And yeah, just pushing forwards, potentially to get a little bit of warning about the Allied advance, moving back towards Tripoli. It's going to be interesting. There's the rocket artillery upgrade coming through. And something we haven't done yet, I don't think, is taking a look. Yes, it's a very similar build here. The main difference being that we have the non-motorized recon and the support rocket artillery compared to Habibi, although Habibi may have been making some additions. No rocket artillery in there yet. He is building it, so I have to imagine he's intending to add it later. But yeah, the main difference here is the motorized. And of course, this is because Habibi can afford that because he hasn't been using his motorized for these 2 widths. I'm very, very curious to see what he's going to do with those 2 widths. I'm also curious about the fact that so far, I've not seen a lot of convoy raids going on. I feel like the convoy protection that's been set up here, he is going with the whole thing. And there we go, finally getting a few of these convoy raids beginning, but not so many of them. And I'm just not convinced by the defensive play. I feel like the Axis defensive play is going to be challenging. Seemops, you know, as I say, he's a great player, so he may have something up his sleeve, but we'll see. Has the air war kicked off?
What I love to see here is this is the first time we've seen Axis players present 40 whiffs. We just talked about it before the stream while eating our breakfast. 40 whiffs finally here for Seemops. We have not seen this yesterday being used against Leonard, and it's going to be great. What I love right now is they're very equal. They have almost the same number of airplanes. They have 40 whiffs, but Seemops is in the advantage here. He is holding more victory points. He has Malta at some point, probably in the last 10 minutes. Our allied nations are going to attack, but this time the defense looks much stronger than we had in some games yesterday. These 40 whiffs are equipped. They are supplied, they have air in the skies, and they are ready to defend the win for Seemops.
Absolutely. We have a little bit of a probing maneuver here, it looks like, from Habibi, just trying to establish where the enemy front line is going to be. No great surprises to be found on that front for him. Construction-wise, very standard. We've got the railways coming down here and building their way across. Interestingly, it looks like there's some kind of redundancy being built in here, because that's an interesting route to be taking for sure, potentially such that he can connect it here and then mean that even if Benghazi falls, there's still a railway running south of there. He's got his port coming in here. Again, no big surprises there. Port potentially a tile further behind where some players have been putting it. Interesting, to say the least. But yes, very, very defensive play from both players. And honestly, in the long term, it really feels like defensive play is going to favor the US. Let's take a look at production rates for a second here. So to just look at some basic things. On fighters, we've got from the Axis, we've got 5.2. Cash, we got 1.9, and infantry equipment, we got 45. So just to compare that real quick to the Allies, we've got substantially less infantry equipment, and actually less on both others. The extra commitment that's been made by Habibi to the production of trucks, of artillery, and of an increased focus on, of course, that railway gun has meant he's actually behind in terms of his production rates. I mean, 5.5 on the fighters to the staggering, okay, and now 5.3, okay, slight decrease now as things refocus. What was that refocus onto? Not quite sure I see, but I mean, it's very, very close, certainly, but this is before, I believe, Habibi gets his final focus. And here we go, Smoke and Ashes, getting out some massive towed artillery and, of course, enabling his access to the plane focus. But currently, both players just staring at each other across this little demilitarized zone in the center here and waiting for one of them to make the first move.
And I think Habibi has entered the church of Leonard. This feels so much like yesterday's game. The Allied player is slowly creeping up the way, building his supply depots, making himself ready for the final push in the end. But I love to see today that Seemops is presenting a much stronger defense here. He has the 40 whiffs. He is a matching air. I think Discord Pixel was yesterday trying to figure this out with anti-air divisions. This is not the case here. He is trying his own air. And this is a very, very equal ground right now. And I feel like it's not going to be this easy this time for the Allied player to just easily push through. I guess we're going to figure out in about 21 minutes and 6 seconds.
One thing I want to point out here is that clearly Seemops knows where the weak spot in his defensive line is, because we're saying like he's got these 40 wits, but if we take a look at Habibi here for a second, Habibi right now has deployed none of his 40 wits. He only has the basic infantry divisions out right now. He's got these guys in production. They're waiting on, towed artillery, which of course will be solved by his current focus. And then he'll have 3, call it 4, divisions. Meanwhile, Seemops has only 2. In production right now, he has a bunch more, but they're very untrained. Of course, he could rush them, but he probably doesn't want to be suffering some of the penalties that come from that. They're not the worst in the world, but there are some penalties that come from that. But yes, he knows where the weak spot is in his front line, and it is right here. Obviously, right? Because this is the tile that can be attacked from 3 directions. This is the tile that holds the airbase. Now, the Axis, of course, have the advantage that they have the airbase at Malta. And most of these planes, looking at their ranges, they're fine flying out of Malta. Not quite as good. You will suffer a little bit of a range penalty, but not too bad. So he's got his 2 40 wits, planning on holding here. But 2 40 wits versus 4 40 wits attacking from 3 directions. There's no way the 40 wits can hold that. I mean, that seems like a point. My prediction right now, this province buckles. He could try and fort it up, but forts get broken pretty quickly in the kind of sustained fighting we're likely to see in the now christened Church of Leonard push. I mean, it's going to be very interesting for certain. Did those two wits? Yes, they were disbanded. Interesting. So he bought those temporarily. Perhaps thinking about a naval invasion, scouting, finding it to be a bad idea and backing off. Okay, here we go. Now, with this province defended, this changes the front. Every little tweak here changes the front, for sure. I'm not sure about the wisdom of holding here and here as opposed to here and here. It's potentially a supply situation decision, but this province, despite being vast, if you're holding it and here, you do only have to defend it from 2 directions. You are getting further and further away from the supply. Let's take a look at his building. Yes, okay, so he's actually, interestingly, not prioritizing getting that railway out, focusing on just holding the navy. Now, that is a risky maneuver coming out of Seemops, prioritizing just building some of these, obviously, as we can see, with the substantially weaker civilian industry, because he is elected to go more on the military side first, trying to build just more dockyards. That's going to mean that he's going to find himself potentially at risk from the subs. He's still, Seemops, very good player, still not really sub-hunting as effectively as I would like. He's got some of his own subs out here, but then just one big fleet defending convoys. I mean, I need some of these destroyers to be out there on their own, not being held back, because, I mean, these are not the fastest. 33, I mean, it's good. 33 is good, don't get me wrong. But we've got some 38 speed destroyers here that need to be out there finding subs.
And I love to see the port Seemops is building right now. It could be a genius move or play, because he's saying, hey, if I rule the Navy here and Habibi is not ever going to contest my Navy, how about I just support myself through a naval port? I don't need no railway. And that could be a big gamble, as you said, but it could maybe pay off.
One thing that's worth noting about that is that the bombing of rail is significantly easier than the bombing of convoys. So we're going to see, for fairly obvious reasons, where the railway is. But the thing about that is that while it's harder to bomb the sea, of course it's easier for subs. We're seeing lots of sub engagements happening here, not a lot of dead subs. Let's take a look at how many he's managed to kill so far. Wow, none. Not a single allied sub has fallen so far. Let's take a look. Did he do anything, Habibi, that is, with his sub designs? I'm curious.
And there's the railway. We just talked about the devil, and he has appeared. The railway is still coming in. He's making sure to build a nice supply network here. Doesn't only want to rely on his navy here.
Fair enough. It's the safer play. I feel like the port first is actually the smart way to do it, though. It means that you get the supply sooner, and your supply is less under threat early on, of course. Taking a look, thank you, at the air here, uncontested, completely uncontested, which is interesting. Habibi just holding all his... Sorry, no, Habibi is uncontested. He's the one that has all his planes in the air right now. He's fine on fuel for now. He's going for some logistical strikes. Makes sense. Just getting a bit of kills there. Anything, yeah, a few little bits of damage there, but without the big train coming through yet, there's not a whole lot to logistical strike. We're also, I believe, not seeing, no motorization. So there's no trucks for him to bomb right now, because we're not yet seeing any kind of motorization. Meanwhile, there they are. The 440 wits have been deployed. They, of course, have their fairly substantial fuel usage. He's not moving them around too much. Neither is he training them. Perhaps, and there's one of the first uncontested sub fights we've seen with the allied subs actually coming in to defend their own convoys, interestingly. And yes, the heavy motorization being deployed from Habibi here. Okay. Finally, the battle lines are going to be joined. Let's take a look at how Habibi's feeling right now as he moves in. He has the 40 wits. They are motorizing along towards it. He's got the port spam tactic. I mean, it's not exactly spam, but the port tactic that has been going so well for many of our players so far.
I wonder how important the attribute of patience is going to be here. Is Habibi going to wait for the 10 minutes, 5 minutes? Is he going in at 20? Going in too early could be a massive disaster for him here.
It certainly could. I mean, he's got those railways still building up. He's got his 40 wits a tiny bit undersupplied, one of them, but mostly coming good now. And let's see here. Is he going to do a backup line? No, just cranking the levels here, wanting to get more and more supply. Of course, one of the downfalls of a potential downfall for a US player. Yes, you can build a lot of 40 wits, but can you supply them? So he's got to stay committed to making sure he has those troops ready for their food. He's got to make sure that this army has a stomach upon which to march. And there, he's moving some of his 40 wits back, just trying to keep them in high supply. It looks like not interested in launching off into a battle just yet. Still some raiding going on the other side, moving along fairly classically. I'm curious. Go ahead.
We see something very interesting right now. I was just checking the air war. There hasn't been an air war in the beginning. Germany hasn't put up his air, but Habibi put up his air. And you know what's happening right now? Logistical damage is being done. Already 3 railways destroyed, level 2 infrastructure destroyed. This could turn slowly into disaster for Seemops here. He needs to put up his air. He has it ready.
Oh, he has a train deficit right now.
a train. Oh, he might be getting also 87% logistic fulfillment.
Yep.
He needs to figure out this is happening. He's giving this away too easy here. The logistic is being bombed. This is costing him civilian power.
It is.
And he needs to react very soon.
And of course, interception is a very efficient method in terms of how you're likely to be able to trade against the enemy planes. And so he's not even willing to do that. It shows a lack of confidence in his air. He's now at a -4 train deficit, and those trains continue to be shot down. That puts him in an increasingly bad situation. He's currently got 2 factories. He just increased the number of factories he has on civilian trains, but he did not get the armored train. That could be a critical mistake.
That is a beautiful thing to realize here in the mod and in the gameplay. The armored trains seem to be so important.
They really
armored trains are very, very defended against CAS logistical strikes, and that is what Seemops is suffering right now from. And he put up the air.
Okay, the contest there has begun. We're seeing a superiority mission from him, probably partly because he has a bonus, I believe, on his air superiority stats, if I'm not mistaken. I am mistaken, at least right now. Okay, interesting. He's also not right now using his carrier fighters on land. I must say, I think that's a mistake. This is where he needs it. He's lost 12 trains. Oh my goodness me. He's got an 11 train deficit. That is absolutely devastating. Look at that. That is not the way the line is meant to go. Doesn't he know the expression?
Are we playing Victoria Free?
It's meant to be line go up, man. This is not what we're looking for. In mere days, his trains have been wiped out. Now, also a great thing to note here, look at these mission efficiencies. His fighters have been relatively recently deployed, and they're sitting at a absolutely devastating 56 to 100% mission efficiency with only 4 air detection to 14 on the enemy
But I must
side.
say, the numbers of fighters are getting closer and closer to each other. I was just about to say, here we see the strength of the US build. You get 100 Spitfires for free, which brings you ahead of the playing count of the Axis player. But Seemops is getting close. Look at the numbers, 188, 189.
He did to commit really hard to
he
the
just pulled
production
out.
there, but he's pulled them back out. One thing that the Axis is definitely suffering from here is that, of course, air detection is partly based on the proportion of the air zone controlled by one player. Now, that means because it's in the tooltip, man. But that means
Imagine reading.
that because he's got so much more of the area under control, the allies Habibi, he's got so much more of the area under control. He's got this from controlled territory 7%, which is, putting him dramatically ahead of the air detection that the Axis can really hope to maintain. Still no fuel issues for the Axis. Meanwhile, over on the Allies, no fuel issues at all. Content to just sit there with the land under control, with the air dominance, and with things becoming increasingly logistically difficult. Look at that. It's a desperation play.
Yep.
Going up to 3 civilian trains, no armored train inventions. He probably realizes, not incorrectly, that it's a bit late for the armored train. But look at this. 0 train fulfillment. He hasn't a single train in the entire freaking country. That is outrageous. We're going to start to see some massive supply problems. Look at this. Look at this. Really, really struggling to be able to send these. You need 8 trains to properly staff that. It's got none. You need 6 trains to properly staff this. He's got none. Of course, it's not as bad as it could be, because the front line that he has chosen to defend is very, very close to these points. And the main things trains are going to do is push that supply further afield. But if he tries to bring in more of these 40 wits, I mean, look at this, 8 out of 8 is not the number you want to be seeing. Is he trying to build more ports? Not yet. No, he's actually, look at that. He's building military factories, something we haven't seen a lot of, probably so that he can try and crank out more of these. But look at the production rate on trains right here, 2.2 a month. My man, you lost 16 in 10 days. That's not a sustainable number. That is not a war of attrition that he can possibly hope to keep up. I mean, if we look at the years here, months will work. He lost 14 trains, and that was in the space of, a month. A month! And even if he gets his production efficiency, right now he's 30 out of 80. Even if he gets it up there, he's still only breaking even, and he can't afford to break even. Not with 20 trains needed and none owned. It's a very worrying position. I mean, look at this. The whole front line now. Every division on the front line suffering from this critical supply shortage, all while the All while Habibi has these 40 widths, now 5 of them notably on the front, and he has not yet disbanded his armored division, so we may see some shenanigans with them. We haven't seen a whole lot of armored divisions yet, but we will see. We will see. I mean, it's going to be... Oh, he has got Panzer Leader, but I believe he actually starts with that, so I don't think that's too informative about what he's intending to do. I mean, he could fight the air. Oh, the air fight has started again. It's 200 planes to 216 right now. If he gets the naval air in there, it might make things rise. But look at that. Oh my God, look how well he's doing. 40 fighters lost to 3. That's absurd. Look at that trading rate.
Why did he pull his air off before that? He was doing great before.
It shows a lack of confidence, I think, not recognizing the amount of ability he has here. These fighter trades are going exceedingly well for him. Let's remind ourselves of what those fighter builds were. We're looking at, the triple light machine gun. Interestingly, the triple light machine gun out of Habibi is currently trading unfavorably into the double with the 1 secondary weapon, which is interesting because that's not what we tend to see.
Well, one thing I like to see, for the first time, we see a more advanced fighter design. We have special features like a self-sealing fuel tank and armor plates. Does the Allied player have that on his side?
I don't believe so. Let's check that out. Oh, he does?
Oh, he does.
Oh, sorry. No, I'm on the wrong player. Oh, my bad. My bad. If we take a look here, we will see that I believe he does not, but we will find out. No, he does not. Okay, okay.
And that might be the answer to the question we're raising here.
It might well. It might well. The battle in the air rages on. I mean, oh my God, look at this. 9-1 casualties. This is reminding me of the Battle of Britain. It's such a freaking stomp. It's outrageous. We're seeing colossal casualties coming in here on this side. And look at this. Our trains lost 0. 0. Now, you know why? It's because there's no trains, but still, it's a good number. Meanwhile, we're actually starting to see trains lost on the other side. We've got a few there, 2 of them so far taken out of the Axis side. But, I mean, it's not looking good still, even with that favorable trading. Very, very favorable trading. The numbers aren't changing. They're not changing in his favor. He's currently keeping some fighters 13 or 14 in reserve. Meanwhile, I think it looks to me like Habibi is going all in. Yes, indeed. He's putting every fighter he possibly can into that Tripoli air zone, it looks like. But yes, the trains being lost, it just... I feel like, honestly, with the train situation, whoa, you know what? Okay, interesting. Something I've just thought of. You know what? Habibi doesn't have a spy network to know that he has no trains. Because I was thinking, why isn't the Habibi push happening now? He's obviously doing the slower build, the more calm approach here. But if he knew that his opponent had not a single train, he's got his logistical network fully established. He's got it motorized. He's got the trains. Although, of course, with 23 trains, okay, here we go. The first combat, and we are getting into it. It's looking like not a serious attempt to push there, but you know Habibi is grinning to himself right now. Let's see if we can take a look. He's just come up against the enemy troops and he can see, nope, it's the look of sheer professionalism, but he's just come up against the enemy troops and he can see they are at low supply. They are at half organization. I'm not sure these troops are even reorging at all. They are. Oh my God. We'll go back to Habibi in a second. Look at this. 0.2, no hourly recovery. They are locked at 28 organization, sometimes 0.02. Oh my Lord. Going back over to Habibi's perspective here. He's got the railway gun. He's moved to the front. I don't see a way that Habibi doesn't do this. This is the underdog story. He's got the planning bonus command active, so he's going to be building that up with those 40s. I struggle to see how this is going to be answered, but taking a look here, the 40 width count actually might be favoring the Axis. I mean, look at that. We've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but it's not going to count if they don't have any supply. First 40 width driven straight out of those hills, even just from a single prong defensive. The artillery train doing fantastic work. Look at that. Look at that. Habibi breaking through the line already. Of course, there are further points to fall back, but there could be a push for an encirclement here.
Unentrenched units here retreating into the desert.
Yeah.
Habibi could exploit. A big issue here of Seemops' plays. First of all, unfortunately, the big mistake, no armored trains. You are losing your trains. And a big issue why he's not winning the air wars, his airport is not fully supplied. These airplanes cannot do what they're good at doing. And now the rewards of this misplay are at his doorstep. The American troops are coming in, and this could be the downfall of his front line very soon.
And there goes the airbase, leaving a situation where they're going to have to pull back the planes to Malta, as you can indeed see that they have done. It leaves them in a very unenviable position here for the Allies, not quite able to push in as much as he would like, Habibi. He's got a little bit of supply situation of his own that he'll need to give a pause to get under control here. He did plow in 6 40 wits, might be a little bit optimistic here. We've got the last stand up, and oh, the disrespect. It looks like Habibi is just going to wait out that last stand order. My goodness, that's got to feel like a little bit of a low blow at this point. Just waiting for it, not even concerned. Taking a look at the logistics on the other side, yeah, still entirely unsuccessful.
That's grim.
And even with 5 factories on it, 1.2 trains a week, that's not nearly enough. He's losing 10 times that.
And that is 5 factories not building anything else, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And with these ports, potentially another port could be helpful, but I mean, even then you start to get the distances that just don't work. And taking a look here, I mean, yeah, look at that. Look at that. With the efficiency dropping, although that's mostly just the sandstorm right now, but yeah, the coverage is not fantastic. If we take a look at the specific ones here, we're seeing, yeah, they're
he's taking the
not
port.
quite able to poke it, and there we go.
He just took the
straight
port.
into the port. I don't see a way that this stops. He's managing to hold with these substantial numbers of divisions here, but the supply situation is only getting worse. Look at that. Not only does he have no trains, he's now finding himself with a failing supply transfer down from Tunisia. We've got a disastrous situation here as the raiding takes its toll. Again, another last stand, just probably waiting for that one to be rolled out. It looks like an attempt at a counter-offensive not going his way, and in fact opening up for one of those 40 wits to be sent packing and driven back from the front. Wow. I mean, this is very interesting. It's very interesting. I mean, there's still a chance. There's still a chance. Seemops could pull an ace out of his sleeve. He's not doing anything funky with naval invasions right now. He's not doing anything too funky on production. He's still desperately trying to get those trains out. I really don't know if that's the way to go. He has a couple that he's using now, slightly improving the situation for him.
Unfortunately, these are the wrong trains. We have voices in the chat voicing that Logistrike might be too strong. It could have been avoided with armored trains. It seems to be a thing you have to instantly do in these games, and I think going forward today, we're going to see a lot of armored trains.
I certainly think so. I certainly think so. I mean, the thing about Logistical Strike being very powerful is, of course, it's powerful. You know, you've got unarmored civilian trains. I mean, think about what these troops are trying to be supplied with while facing modern, powerful air force. They're just civilian trains, trucks, rolling things in here.
It's not a nice train ride, and I'm a German, I know.
It's not a situation you want to find yourself in at all. You can see here Seemops attempting to draw people back from the front, but I don't think it's going to be enough. He's relying on these last stands here, but it's not going to be enough.
We have 10 minutes left to take that city of Tripoli. Seemops has to try to somehow engage in logistical supply here. This is the only way, because the debuffs to his Tripoli defense are just too big. It will be very easy for Habibi to take this and take this game.
It looks like his continued effort to building trains is somewhat paying off. He's going for... Oh, but there's the attack, and he is losing it. And he is losing it. He's been really trying, and his logistical supply back up to 50%. No, just held, just hold. Interesting, interesting. We are seeing, the rail connection as well, extending all the way over here. We do now have a rail that stretches from Cairo to Tunisia, spreading out along the front, preparing. It looks like Habibi is preparing for a final strike here.
the supply issues are just too big. And also, if we switch over to Seemops, we don't see him repair the infrastructure in Tripoli. He is not supplying the defense of Tripoli. The red bubble is there for him, and pretty soon this could be over. Gets the green bubble, holds it still.
Not quite, just holds it. Didn't quite get the reinforce in time, did Habibi. But Habibi is taking a back route. If we look at this, he's forced his divisions out here, leaving them much further away, unable to defend. And then the attack relaunches here. He's holding on Tripoli, but he's falling on the province just south of it. These two infantry divisions doing excellent work. And look at that, 1,200 soft attack. It's hard to imagine how 1,200 soft attack can be turned back at this stage. I mean, they've got a pretty bad organization situation. It's never say never. There could always be a convincing counter-offensive. And there we go. Yes, more logistical strikes happening offshore as well as these carriers take some beatings, some sub-launches there. But it's going to be really, really close. I mean, it's got 8 minutes left. It could still happen. He could hold, but it's anybody's game to win because remember, you know, it looks like Habibi is just one province away from winning, and he is. But right now, Seemops is 0 provinces away from winning. All he has to do is have nothing change, and he has it. Can he do that? I don't see a way that he manages. The air war rages on, and the trading has continued very, very favorably for Seemops. Have the numbers begun to tell? You know what they have. 160 to 200 now. Seemops takes the advantage in the air. So far, he's holding against these attacks, one after another coming in here. The micro really nicely deployed from there, but it was not enough. The micro from Habibi was exactly where it needed to be, and Tripoli has fallen. Those next further attacks, wanting to push back, wanting to get a little bit of a buffer from Tripoli, no doubt. But the problem with Tripoli falling is it's not just one province that's fallen, it's the supply hub, and that is devastating.
And the victory point too. I was about to say a second ago, time is running for Seemops here. As long as he's holding Tripoli, he's fine. But now with the switch of Tripoli over to the US side, the 7 minutes and 20 seconds are ticking for Habibi, who is very, very close to take away this game. It makes you wonder what would have happened if Seemops would have not pulled his air off for a second, even though his air is performing better.
Yeah.
What would have happened if he had the armored trains? This could have been a very different story.
It could. But there is no surrender going on here. We have Seemops continuing to hold a line further back here. It looks like he might be overrun. No, the attack was not launched. But yes, this is right now a winning position for Habibi. A great display from Habibi showing at the end of the day here.
And let's display his beautiful face for that.
Absolutely. I mean, look at that.
And
There's
he's
a smile on his
smiling.
face. He's loved
There
it.
you
He's got
go.
it. Hell yeah. We do love the underdog victory. Let's go from Habibi. I think I could read the lips on that one. And yeah, happy with the machine gun play that he was going on those on the aircraft. And there we go. It's maybe a tiny bit late, but he is now looking at some of the self-fueling fuel tanks and the extra little.
And look at him. He doesn't even have to look at the field anymore. He knows he's got this. He's just preparing to hold for another 6 minutes.
I mean, it was quite the display from Habibi. Absolutely. He's managed to push in. It looks like he has no intention of pushing any further. He's got the provinces that he needs. He's got the victory points that he needs, both under his control. He did, it's worth noting, we didn't actually highlight that, bring in the fleet for the short bombardment upon Tripoli. So while he kept these ships alive and healthy by keeping them in port, of course, earlier in the game, it looks like that is how the game is going to preserve. I mean, really feels like Habibi pulled out there. And remember, this is the man who lost or drew every game yesterday. It's not over till it's over. It's not about how hard you get hit. It's about how hard you can come back and win round one. Look, I'm not sure the metaphor works, but you know what I'm getting at here. He didn't give up. He stayed in the game. Seemops, very good play yesterday. A number of wins. You know, remember, of course, today we have our seeding positions. Seemops heavily favored to win this one, really right up there at the top of the bracket yesterday. One thing I think this does show us, the US is very, very powerful. They are the nation to beat. We have some small little probing attacks here. Is he building a port? No. So I don't think he's actually planning on pushing any further. Otherwise, there would be some port construction going on closer to the front here. But the US really is the nation to beat. They're very, very powerful. And we're going to have to see our Axis players. Oh, interesting. A counter-offensive here. pushing him back a little bit. We're going to have to see our Axis players come up with something to beat the US, and I'm telling you, I think it's the rush build. The Axis rush build is what we haven't seen so far. We haven't seen anyone attempt it, and I'm very, very curious to see if this could happen. Habibi is displaying some magnificent, magnificent play here. The combination, the Church of Leonard, the railgun, the Air Force, it was close in the air. It could have all fallen apart. Seemops here, he's got a smile on his face still. He stayed cheerful. He knows, though, it looks like that it's over. There isn't a serious attempt. Yeah, I mean, that looks like we're moving towards the end here. But it's good to see both of our players with a smile on their face as they've been having here. Okay, the offensive is going to come in from Seemops. He's got a train, a port going up here. What he certainly doesn't have is a train, although he has managed to get a couple.
Instantly gets pushed back.
Yeah,
no. The great narrative of today is going to be what can stop the US here. And I think it's very much possible. We've seen, unfortunately, some mistakes here from Seemops. But what will happen once you have a Dankus, a Discord, or someone else on the Axis side not making these mistakes, learning from these mistakes, and actually challenging this very strong, I don't want to say Leonard build, but I'm going to say Leonard build.
I think if we call it Church of Leonard, it's a little bit of plausible deniability. But, I mean, it does seem like the Axis needs to do something new. The Allies don't have to change. The Allies have a winning formula. It's the Axis that really needs to come up with something and do something new, do something exciting, do something radical, invade Benghazi. But maybe do something that's going to change things up here. Otherwise, I mean, if we see the US continue to dominate like this, the players just have to do something different. One is fight the air war harder. 2 is you've got to have those armored trains. And 3 is I really feel like they need to attack sooner. The problem with attacking sooner, of course, is logistics. How do you solve that? Well, there's a couple of ways. One, you just go hard on the civilian factories. What we've seen so far is the civilian factories from the Allies much more so than from the Axis. If we had a bigger civilian factory play from the Axis, that would be a difference maker. It definitely would. It would mean that they were able to build that train line over there faster and faster and faster and be able to ram themselves over east towards El Alamein just that much faster. Now, what we could see, of course, is just a naval invasion making trains redundant. If you were to go Japan, you have the control of the Navy, or in all likelihood. And I mean, look at this air war here, getting decisively switched up versus Habibi here. He was expecting, I don't doubt, to be able to control the air here. But if we take a look here, he's really struggling to be able to hold on. 100 fighters versus 300. And what that tells me is that Seemops over-invested in the air. Not what I was expecting to be saying at the beginning of this matchup, but it really feels like Seemops used industrial capacity on the air that could better have been used on armored trains, more infantry. I mean, probably not more infantry. The only thing you do with more infantry here is launch the naval invasion, right? Because you can't get more on the front, so you need to open a second front. Obviously, you know, I've heard that before. You know, Gallipoli didn't go extremely well, but you could have seen other fronts opened up here. You could have seen other plays. We saw a lot of Seemops troops. I mean, look at this. He's just got hundreds and hundreds, thousands of men standing around doing nothing back here. Not, you know, it's not a misplay because they can't be on the front because of the supply situation, but just those are the people that we needed to see doing something impactful. Entering our last 50 seconds here, and it looks very conclusively like it's going to be a Habibi victory. We will, of course, get a conversation with him in here shortly. Here is some, yeah, they are going after the Navy there. But yeah, at the end of the day, it was an air victory. I mean, this is one of the things I was saying. You know, I've been working on my catchphrase game. We've got land is king. Habibi lost the air war. He lost the naval war, and he won the game. And why? Because land is king. He managed to ram himself through to Tripoli. Unstoppable 40-width offensive. The thing about these divisions is that they can attack from multiple directions, obviously, meaning you get that concentration of force, meaning that it's just so much more powerful to be able to be the one commanding the offensive, and that is why I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, we need to see an Axis Rush build. But as the time hits 0, that is it for this game, and we will be coming back to, we'll get you your victor interview, and so on in the studio here in just a moment. Tommy, we know about the trains. we know about a potential rush. What else can the Axis do? How can they answer the big blue blob that we have evolving here in the east?
What we saw in this game here is we had 2 players have fighters, but only 1 fighter had the Cass, and that Cass did immense logistical damage, and that logistical damage led to the downfall of the supply in Tripoli and to the downfall of Seemops, who doesn't like an underdog story. Habibi, good job. And I'm very, like I just said, the narrative today is going to be what beats this US build. And
yeah,
once you have the armored trains, once you maybe even logi-strike your enemy and use your navy a bit more, as you talk about naval invasions, oftentimes these players have a navy, the Axis players that they don't use. That's going to be interesting. Another thing I just found is you just showed a massive army for the Axis player.
Yes.
What if the players start realizing, hey, this is 2 tiles, 3 tiles, I need like 8 divisions, that's it, I don't need more.
Yep.
And then these military factories are put into something more important, and it has 2 wings.
Yep. I mean, it's 2 wings, and usually it drops bombs, but that is us. We're going to hand you back over to the hosts. See you in the next round.
I always do the whoo thing when we come back, because for whatever reason, these games always end up, you know, the last few minutes. Okay, not the last few minutes in this one, but, you know, it builds to a peak around 15 minutes in.
Yeah.
And at that point, you know, shit gets real.
Well, this is the thing. We were not really expecting Habibi to pull this out. Like, we have to say...
I mean, I knew it from the start.
Okay, you knew it from the start, but the statistics said that this was Seemops' game to win. But I think what's gone on here is Habibi has proved to us that a well-laid plan, if it survives contact with the enemy, it's going to do you well. And this US build that is looking undefeatable, but it definitely will have its weaknesses. It's just people are yet to find them. As we say, we're really early in this meta development and everything. But I can't wait to actually find out what Habibi has to say on this.
And that's, you know, that's one of the things we talked about when we were watching the game as it was being cast. That, you know, it seems like one of the important steps is try and figure out early what your opponent is trying to do. Especially if you're going for like that turtle play, right? That we saw Seemops doing. Like, okay, they've picked the US. This is what's going to happen. We've seen it before. How do I counter this? Like, how do I make sure that this play is not the play that wins it? And then you have, you know, 50 minutes to get that counterplay into action. Yeah. But if you miss that and you realize that, 30 minutes in, okay, hey, shit, fuck, this is what's happening. I was like, I'm gonna be PG, and then I changed my mind to the crudest swear words I know.
Yeah, just to really emphasize how much of a point this is, we had to bring out the vulgarity.
Exactly. But with that said, and to smooth everything over, you know, let's bring in the man of the hour, Absolute Habibi, coming back from day 1, looking grim, but going straight into day 2 with a victory and a knockout. Well played.
Thank you, guys. You know, I just first want to say that I think Seemops is the better player in almost every single aspect. And even, you know, if you even saw our air trades, he was trading a lot better. I think the only reason why I won, well, actually, there's 2 major reasons. The first one is logi striking is incredibly powerful. It's just way too powerful in this scenario because you have such a limited amount of trains. So, like, he was out trading me on air like almost 20-1 at one point. But since I had more air in the beginning, it didn't matter. I literally I don't know, I think I destroyed all of his trains in the first like 2 months of putting my cast up, which we might be way too powerful. The second reason is this USA build. So I actually played against Leonard on my 4th game, and he did this USA build. Actually, no, I played against Dankus my 5th game, and he did this USA build. And right now it seems almost undefeatable. And the main reason is that you get a 50% max planning bonus in your last focus, and it's, oh my god! Like with everything, you also can put plus 10 max planning on Eisenhower. Yep. So you can go all the way up to almost 80% planning. So it's very, very powerful.
You say that it came down to Seemops being a better player and it was just quite a lot of the build. But for example, the air war, there was a time where actually Seemops recalled their Air Force, which allowed you to do so much damage. So there was misplays in there. So don't count yourself out on that. Don't rely on just the build. You did do very, very well. And one thing that I'd like to see, if you imagine you get to the final, which you probably will after seeing that game, and you get allies, how do you think that Dankus or Leonard or whoever it is that has the access to deal with this, how are they going to deal with it?
Well, two ideas. It's really funny because, the viewers don't really know this, but we're talking, all of the gamers, we're here, we're just having a really good time, which I really love, by the way. All the game players here, there's like no animosity, and everyone's talking about strats after the game. But I think right now with this allies build, I think the counter is that you need to get intelligence agency immediately, because you can counter their planning, get rid of all of their planning bonus. And another idea maybe is some kind of like rush build. I don't think it would work, but maybe it could. Maybe you could do some kind of like, with Japan or with Germany, just kind of a build to try to go for the win immediately, go for the cap. I think not many players have went for the cap. It's kind of hard in these tiles to go for the cap. Defending city tiles with 10 wits is like almost enough. But allies definitely has the potential to get naval invaded, like very heavily. So I think that would probably be the strategy if one of these players were against me on Axis. Right now, though, I think all of the players would prefer allies. Like when I saw that I won allies, I was like, thank God, thank God, allies.
I'm going to see my statistics of my win rate's going to completely flip back to allies. We started yesterday with allies with a better win rate, and then it was Axis all day, and then Axis at the beginning of today, and now I think we might see an allies flip, which really shows how the meta is just evolving. But Habibi, again,
it's really cool.
Yeah, congratulations on your first win after that showing yesterday, and yeah.
I mean, that was because, as I've mentioned several times, if I remember correctly, because it was so long ago, it was yesterday, the one tied game was between you and Seemops. Now we know in the knockout today, we know who's actually, who came out on top of that. Your next game is going to be in the semifinal, and if I remember correctly, you are up against Leonard, which will be an exciting game to watch. So we're going to leave you some time to prepare and go talk about the next... Oh, sorry. See, this is why I have people in my head. You're playing against Dankus.
Dankus, yeah.
Dankus. Okay. I am very confused. There is a proper tournament bracket.
Yeah.
I'm confused. Everything else is perfect. We'll figure it out. So... Long story short, thank you for talking to us, Absolute Habibi. It will be super exciting to see you in the semifinals.
All right, take care, guys. Bye.
Okay, well.
Should we check that bracket now, so we actually have that lineup?
I mean, yes, we should probably check the bracket if we have it available to us. There we go. See, it was me misremembering. It's Absolute Habibi versus Dankus Mimikas in their semifinal, and whoever wins the next game between Discard Pixel and Courier goes up against Leonard. And the reason I bring that up is because we talked to the players on Discord back and forth about, okay, so how do we do this? Do we do the coin toss? Said it correctly. On social media, we posted the first one on Instagram, and Leonard pointed out it'd be fun to do it live. And I was like, yeah, but do we have time to do it? We're doing it live.
I mean, it was already a pressure enough that I dropped it on the Instagram post. So the fact that I'm going to now have to do this live and not drop I was practicing all in the break.
So to recap, what do we have? We have a coin.
So we have a coin. We have a dragon, which is heads. And we have a scale, which is tails.
Yes. And whatever comes up. So let's say this card is heads.
Yep.
Courier is tails.
And whoever wins it gets Axis.
Yes. The current lower tier choice.
We did this with the percentage win rate being Axis favored. We're like, okay, so we'll give the winner Axis. I've already dropped it and I haven't even thrown the thing.
Well, that's awkward.
Yeah, that's really awkward because I was gesticulating too hard. So I'm going to have to take off the headphones for 2 seconds. No,
so we have Christo sneaking into the studio.
Yeah.
Find the coin.
Did you find
the coin?
Yeah.
He did.
There we go. There we go.
Okay, so to recap, Discard Pixel, head.
Yep.
Courier, tail. And it's...
Heads.
Heads. Discard Pixel is playing Axis. Courier is playing Allies. That's the next game, and we will show that to you after this break.